Hi, good morning, everybody. I know it's afternoon, but it's UMS morning. I'm Bruce Trujillo. I'm excited to have this great talk with all of these radio professionals, a couple of labels in here. I'm actually going to have y'all introduce yourselves. I'm going to start off our conversation by saying, yes, radio still matters, so we're not going to ask that question. Radio is still the #1 way that folks discover new music and find old classics, all of that good stuff. And there's a reason why we're here today. My background in the music industry began in 2006 with college radio. I have been working in radio ever since. I'm currently with KGNU, but I've worked with a few of these people over the years, and I'm just really excited to be able to talk with each of you. And for our land acknowledgement, we know that all of our stations, all of our labels are on unceded native lands, and that's all that needs to be said. I'm gonna hand it off, so we'll say our name, on-air name if you'd like, pronouns, station or label, and how long you've been there. Got it? We good? Remember it? Perfect.
Hi, my name is Alisha Sweeney. I work for Indy 102.3 from Colorado Public Radio. Been with the station 13 years. We launched it then, and my pronouns are she, her.
My name's Molly Gallegos, professionally La Molly. I'm representing The Drop. I've been there for about a year, but also on KUVO for about 6 years.
My name is Shane German. I am the program director at KUVO, KUVO Jazz. My pronouns are he, they, and I've been working in the music industry for 30 years, from radio to performance rights organizations like the company Sound Exchange and various other community radio stations across the country.
You can keep that one. Thanks, Shane. Yeah. Hi, I'm Michelle Feghali. I work at Sub Pop Records. I've been there for almost 7 years, and my pronouns are she, her. Did I miss anything?
That's perfect.
All right, great.
Hey, I'm Nerf, KTCL Denver for the last 25 years, he, him, and yeah, just 25 years. I just had my anniversary. And yeah, I'm the program director, afternoon drive jock, and kind of technically now vice president of events and strategic partnerships.
Hi, my name is Harlan Kelly. I work at Psychic Hotline, which is a record label, not a psychic hotline. And I worked in radio promotion for 8 years, and I've been the marketing director at Psychic Hotline for 2 years.
Yes.
My
Welcome,
pronouns are they,
everybody.
them.
Pronouns they, them. Perfect. So welcome, everyone. So we only have a limited amount of time together, so I have curated questions kind of for our panel here. If anybody absolutely wants to hop in on our questions, I'm not going to stop you. So first question is for Alisha, Shane, and Nerf. We've got a couple of different types of radio stations here today. What kind of radio do you work in, and why? So Alisha, if you could also talk about college radio. You work for Public, but I'll hand it off to you first.
Yeah, when I was a teenager, I started at the University of Colorado at Boulder and started as a college radio DJ. It had a great station there. And if you're a college radio DJ, that's a great place to cut your teeth and figure out like where you fit in the radio world. So for me, I learned very early on that I was pretty darn good on air, in that I was great at storytelling because I was super passionate about the music that I played. So then when I transitioned into public radio, which I had the option to go into commercial radio, public radio, community radio, I chose public radio because I'm all about informing, enlightening, and entertaining through storytelling of musicians. And so for me, I really believed that was my path, and that's why I got into where I am at public radio. So Indy 102.3 is a non-commercial radio station. It's a public radio station. It's supported by our listeners and also by different government grants and such as well, and some underwriters.
Same with KUVO. They've been serving the Denver community for nearly 40 years. Next year will be 40 years. Started as a Spanish language community radio station and then evolved into more of a jazz format. Through the years, we've started including more multicultural programs like Latin alternative, rhythm and blues, hip hop, trip hop, whatever you want, we really have at KUVO. After years of working in a corporate environment, I wanted to get out of the corporate rat race and get to know my community. I'm just at a stage in my life where I want to have engagement and discussions with communities, so that's why public radio and community radio is so important to me. I don't have a commercial radio background, so I'm just really at a stage in my life where I want to serve communities, connect communities through the power of music, and that's kind of where I'm at, just on on the KUVO side. I'm relatively new to Denver. I just relocated here about 7 months ago, so I'm a little new in the KUVO space, but not in the radio space altogether.
And Nerf.
Same.
Yes.
No, I'm the polar opposite of these guys. Giant company, commercial radio. KTCL is owned by iHeartMedia, the biggest media company in the world, and you feel it when you work there. Believe me, if that's daunting and scary to the public, it's way more so if you work there. So yeah, but grew up on commercial radio though. Littleton High, listened to like a lot of the Fox and KBPI and stuff like that growing up. KTCL didn't come in very well in Littleton back then, but luckily for me, we do now. And we're one of the top-rated alternative rock stations in the country, and which we're pretty proud of, especially since there's like 2 of us now that run it. So, but still a lot of fun, and still like love to do as much as we can while being a commercial radio station to kind of still serve the community and still provide a unique experience and do things specifically for Denver, Colorado, and Boulder and all the surrounding markets.
So when we hear these different stations, they sound a little bit different. Maybe, I mean, for us, they sound different of those who've been in radio. For folks who maybe don't have that ear, can you explain maybe why public radio might sound different than commercial radio? Anybody can answer.
Yeah, Nerf, from your perspective, what would you say?
Sure. We cater to a very mass audience, and it's difficult to get away with some things. When I listen to a lot of indie, and I listen to a lot of KUVO, and they're great. It's so much fun for me, and I wish I could do some of the stuff they do, but like, you know, it's one of those things, you get too deep into unfamiliarity and you start losing some audience. And we do a lot of music research, a lot of testing of our songs, a lot of different levels of that. We do these things called OMTs, which are like 600 songs at a time. And then we do some call-out research where they bother you at home and say, you like this song and all this stuff. And then we do, most importantly, the music nerd surveys that we talk a lot about on the air. We really do collect opinions from our audience that way, and so it's probably a lot more scientific. We we vet every single song we play, and we're we hone it down to a well-oiled machine playing nothing but songs that people really, really love, and if they don't, then the song's got to go away, and that's tragic sometimes, because sometimes those are the ones we love. But I mean, I got to say that I love the fact that we have indie here. I love that the Colorado sound is here. I love that we've got such a robust, as far as rock music goes, amazingly robust rock radio spectrum in Colorado. It's fantastic. I mean, New York has 0 rock stations. Boston has like a classic rock. That's it. And we've got alternative AAA. Indie, we've got like multiple public broadcasters that are commercial free. It's fantastic. You've got a lot of options here, which is awesome. It's one of the things I love about Denver.
Yeah, I find that a lot of people that I meet in the music industry from all across the country, they're like, Denver is a really great radio market. So that excites me with what I do at Indie 102.3. It's a public radio station, so we're able to share more Colorado musicians on air. We sort of put that in our mission statement when we created the station, that, hey, we are dedicated to shining a light on the Colorado music scene because these artists are just as good as any band you're gonna hear on the radio anywhere else. So we've sort of figured out a way to mix that and to blend that in, because community is very important for us, and being a public radio station, we can do that, which is a little bit different than what commercial radio does.
Yeah, and I think with KUVO, it's really identifying what the needs of the community are. We just launched an Afrobeat show. We felt that there was a space there for our audience members or our listeners to be exposed to more music discovery in terms going outside of jazz adjacent genres. So it's really about making sure that we are representing and providing a platform for underserved voices in the community, and that runs the gamut for multicultural music programming.
Quick question to kind of end this. How large are each of your libraries? How many songs are in each? Ish.
I mean, for us, we have like 30,000 songs plus, and we've just been continuing to grow our library. Not all of those songs get played all the time, but it is something that like we've touched every song that we've added and really given careful consideration, like, hey, should we share this on air? So there's a pretty big variety. It's changed a little bit over the years as we kind of massage things as well, but we have a pretty strong library.
And we've gone from going from physical media into a digital space, so we are still rolling out Music Master and Wide Orbit and all of that stuff. So we're at like 100,000, but we've got 40 years of blues and jazz and Latin music. We have to kind of go through and pare down the essentials to get into the digital system. But physically, we've got a huge like wall of vinyl and CDs and all of that stuff.
Yeah. Commercial.
Same. Lies, total lies. No, it's probably, as far as what's in regular rotation, I'd say it's probably in the neighborhood of about like 350. And then we do have a lot of specialty shows that get much bigger from that. And the station is 75 years old now, something like that. So it's like we've got a catalog that goes way, way back. You wouldn't believe how many Cocteau Twins songs there are. I can't name one offhand, but like
Cherry Colored Funk.
There we go.
Ice Blink Luck.
Yeah.
Carolyn's Fingers.
Oh my God. You want a job? I'm just trying to hold on to my own. But yeah, no, it's much, much smaller for sure.
Right, and I think that's also an essential difference between commercial radio, where you do have these massive audience kind of catering to a lot of different listeners, but public and community radio, you can really get into those like really kind of sometimes weird niche shows that people also really like, but that means that you have 30,000 to 100,000 songs within the library. So a couple of other people that I've been working with over the course of my radio career, I can't even believe it, Harlan and Michelle. I'm so excited to have representation from labels and from other sides of radio. We get to speak on air all the time, but we work with you to get that new music. And so you call us, you tell us who's coming up. Let me remember what my actual question is instead of just gushing about each of you. How do labels work with radio, and what's the difference between like radio distribution with something like a cult classic like Sub Pop to a newer label like Psychic Hotline? Psychic Hotline is from Sylvan Esso, and so it's trusted. We know it's going to be good, but I want to hear if there's any difficulty with like getting people onboarded with something brand new. So whoever wants to start.
Sure, I can start. Oh, wow. How we do radio, well, we have many releases that come out. I really love working at a label where there are so many different types of releases. And I work with one other person in our radio department, and we kind of figure out which stations around the country that we're going to be chatting with. We kind of split it up by different types of stations. So I work mostly with the non-com and college stations, and then my partner works with the commercial stations and Sirius XMU and stuff like that. And then we just kind of figure out, okay, we have this album full of songs. What song is going to be the best foot forward, and how can we pitch that to these stations and show them that there's a reason you should be playing this song, and here's why. It's a lot of just gabbing on the phone and sending emails about music and why it's great and why we think you should play it. What I think kind of sets apart Sub Pop from Psychic Hotline, Sub Pop definitely has a branding behind it. I feel like, I mean, being in Seattle, like everyone and their mother is walking around wearing a Sub Pop shirt or something, but I've been all over the world and I feel like I see Sub Pop stuff pop up. So we do kind of have that advantage of like, oh, this is at a iconic, as you said, like cult label. So we're a little bit more, we've been around for a while and we're just like trusted a little bit more. So I feel like I do kind of have that leg up. That doesn't mean that any of our artists are better than any of the ones at Psychic Hotline, but it's an advantage, I think, for sure. Piss Jeans is pretty cool, yeah.
Let's have our artists fight, and we'll find out.
Take it to the streets.
No, I mean, yeah, and so I worked in radio promotion for 8 years, and now I work I'm the marketing director, so I'm like kind of like zooming out and applying what I've learned in radio to all these other pools of things. But I think that's what I learned from radio is like taking the artist and what they're doing and finding the right home for that artist with what other folks around the country are doing. It was amazing to listen to you all describe the stations and like the differences in the format, because my brain is just like ticking already with like, yeah, because this band lives here and that band lives here. And, you know, like, and I think that with promoting music to all of these different, like just in Denver alone, you know, we are really beautifully diverse like radio market in compared to a lot of other radio markets around the U.S. And like, but that, you know, those different radio formats exist all around the U.S. and finding the right home for different artists at these different stations across the U.S. has been my job for a long time. It is now kind of like expanding outside of that. But I think that's like so much of the pitching that I learned to do in doing radio promo is not necessarily convincing someone to like a song, but just finding like, oh, I know this person likes this kind of stuff, or this radio format leans to like, you know, harder rock stuff or more country sounding stuff. And so because this artist sounds like this, I know this person's gonna like this like track. So making sure that they feel connected with that song, they get that song, they hear about that song is radio promotion.
And can you speak to joining Psychic Hotline? Harlan,
I lost that
Harlan's
part.
history is also in a bigger kind of conglomerate that was, I think, pretty similar to Sub Pop and in names that you've worked with. And
Yeah.
like Harlan maybe helped break Krungbin. Like
That was a why. It is always wild to me how well Krungbin does at radio now, because I remember working that record and being the promoter, being like, hey, yes, I want you to play this song. It's an instrumental song, and it has like, you know, influences from all over the world.
Nerf, you there?
Yeah, exactly. I did not work at commercial radio, but it's incredible. Yeah, I mean, sorry, what was the question?
the rollout of Psychic Hotline, have
Oh, yeah.
you noticed like kind of differences coming from that background into this new label?
100%. Yeah, I mean, I think that like there's a lot more flexibility with Psychic Hotline to be able to kind of like meet the artist where they're at and the scale of their goals, I think, which is amazing. Like I worked on this Joe Westerlin record, which is an ambient record that's, you know, most of the songs are 10 minutes long and about grief and are instrumental, and it's a beautiful goddamn record. And like,
We're not on air. It's
okay,
fine.
great. Yeah, my radio brain kicked in. Because there was just the investment in like, this is a beautiful thing for this reason. I wasn't kicking down Nerf's door to have him play the 10-minute ambient song on air, but like was really able to find homes for it, and outside of radio too. That like to be able to be like, this seed will grow in this world, and I think that is a really special thing that they. You know, I've been working at Psychic Hotline 2 years now, and it's a really special thing that they're cultivating there. Because we're also working. I'm working this Hippocampus record right now. Which I am kicking down Nerf's door about, because it does have a radio single that hits and it fits in with the programming on air there. And so I'm pitching him right now for, you know, but I think it's like about being able to find the scale of these artists where it's like, okay, we want to be able to grow them in this direction. And we kind of like believe in this pathway that they have at this point in their career, and we're able to step up because of like, you know, the experience that so many people who work there have. We'll be able to expand what they're doing as artists, but also meet them with where they're at with their goals as artists as well. So being able to you know, work in those two different worlds. Reina Tropical, who's playing on Sunday as well. Woo! Like it was amazing to work with them, and for part of so many people I worked with. Growing them as an artist, they were like, oh yeah, I know exactly who this person is. I've been a fan for a long time. And so many people were like, I have no idea who this is. And so that like scale has been a really, you know, being able to really engage and push and grow different artists for wherever they're at has been a special thing about working at Psychic.
And there is a bridge that gaps label and radio. And I don't know if anybody was here last year with Chris Sanley, who has moved on to be music director at KEXP. Long history with Chris as well as radio distribution. So anybody who's checking music on the radio end and our labels, if we can kind of just discuss what that looks like. There's calls that are made, there are emails that are, it's kind of like what we're talking about here, but working with then a third person to kind of be that intermediary between each other. I guess.
Yeah, you want to know like how that role
How
works?
does it work? Yeah.
Yeah, I used to do that job. I used to work at a company called The Syndicate back in New Jersey. And that's a wild job because basically you are an indie promoter. So you have to talk to all the labels, talk to all the bands, and figure out, okay, what's your plan for your record? How can we help and be kind of an extension of your team to make sure that we are getting the word out about your music? It's a lot of sales, a lot of pitching people on what you do and proving to them that you can help them. But I loved it because I got to work with like almost every label and band that I wanted to, and just kind of see how all these different places work. And they're really important. Chris was helping me so much on so many projects. I'm sad. It was like bittersweet when she went to KEXP because I'm in Seattle, so I get to hang out with her all the time now. But I'm also like, you were helping me build all of these bands. Yeah, I mean, radio used to be like the number one thing back in the day when I was not there, apparently, when to like create a bigger fan base for artists. And I feel like now it's just more of a small facet, but so the teams at labels in general are pretty small. And I think having those outside indie promoters is really key. And there aren't a lot of them right now that can really do it well. Like every time I talk to the ones that I'm working with or people that are thinking about doing it, I'm like, please do it. I need help.
The role is growing, though, I would say, like because the major labels are, especially in the rock music industry, are getting out of rock music. Especially during the pandemic and right after the pandemic, they were just finding whatever pop artists they had might be played on alternative rock radio and working them to us. And so they've all kind of punched out. The juice is just way more worth the squeeze with a pop artist at like Columbia and Republic and all these big labels. So they're that's kind of drying up, and all of the rock and alternative artists are going to smaller labels, and then they. Not every small label has a promotions arm, and basically like if you're on a major label, they might not help your record get to radio at all. They may say, "Hey, we got bigger fish to fry," and so then that's where these like more independent entities come in, and you can like have the label pay for their services, or you can pay for it directly. And some of them are 100% criminal organizations, just like they don't actually do anything. They have their own charts that they just say like, oh, well, we'll get a bonus if we get you to this level on the charts. And hey, look at that. There we are. And we just left it and moved it up the charts for you, like physically with their left hand. And then there's some that are really worth their salt. And and so, like if you ever have a question about a company, email me, nerf@ktcl.com, and I'll let you know if they're legit or not, because I'd be happy to help on that.
And I bring up the radio distribution because independent artists can work directly with these distributors. If you're working with a Harlan or a Michelle, likely need to be signed to the label first. But there are options to work with folks to push your music out, where it's not just you cold calling and emailing folks and getting overwhelmed because you're an artist and you need to be working on your music, right?
Yeah, I want to say quick too, I have been doing like offhand freelance consulting work with artists just to point them in the right direction, because there are so many facets of the music industry and a lot of artists aren't built to like market their own records. So I'm happy to help if you want to talk to me after and get my info, just to consult and, not gatekeep all the important info.
Michelle Feghali, everybody. Molly, I would love to hear from you. So our next question, this one will be for Molly, Alisha, and Nerf. The importance of local and independent artists in the radio landscape specific to your station. You do a lot with a lot of indie folks and local folks, and you're just a champion, so I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, so at the drop, we play a local artist every hour. That is the backbone of our station. We are, just like KUVO, we're a community station, so we need you as much as you need us, right? And I think it's important too because we are a community station, we need that Denver sound, right? We have a beautiful and incredibly creative community of artists here in this city, and so being able to uplift them is so important. That's the whole reason I got into radio, was as a way to explore and understand who I am and therefore who we all are, right? I feel like music does that. And so that's the whole purpose, is to be able to uplift musicians and local musicians in that effort.
Alish.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot like that. I know a handful of you, a lot of you. Is everybody a musician in here? Anybody a non-musician? Raise your hand if you're a non-musician. Okay, so a couple of you. But I know a lot of you in here. I don't think I said what I do at Indie 1023 when I introduced myself, but I'm the local music director. I listen to every single submission that you guys all send in, and I figure out how to give you airtime if your songs are ready for airtime. And I do an hourly feature called Local 303, where we choose 12 different Colorado artists to highlight per month. So there's an on-air component that you hear a local musician every hour. There's a web component where you can read about the 12 artists that we're highlighting. And then we keep rotating that out every month. We also have a local show that we do. But for us, we put it in our mission, like I mentioned, to just support local artists and the music that we play, the independent musicians from all over the world as well. We want it to reflect what's going on in the world, not just maybe the top hits of the moment and everything. So it's really important for us to program what's happening in our community across all genres. If you listen to Indie 1023, you know it is a celebration of a whole bunch of different kinds of music because we want to share with what's happening right in our very own backyard.
And Nerf, you've talked about commercial radio, and we've got this small library, a lot of people listening, but you do a lot of work with local musicians as well.
Yeah, we
which
definitely
is maybe
do.
not necessarily
It's not typical.
the fact of commercial radio.
Not when I talk to people at conferences that do what I do, it's always a little shocking to me, like how little of it goes on. But we definitely we like year round we play a ton of local music, and a lot of them are bands that we helped like launch. The Fray, who's just gotten back together, they're playing a night at the Fox Theater actually, without Isaac, which is kind of crazy, but but love those guys, and we helped them get signed to their deal and stuff like that way back in the day. The band 303, Nathaniel Rateliff, the Night Sweats.
Everybody on this panel was probably helped with it.
Well, anyway. But no, we've done a lot of work with a lot of different local artists, and some that we don't play anymore, some that went on to huge things, we do our best to, I listen to everything. That's, I think, one of the kind of differences, like Alisha, I listen to everything I'm sent, regardless of where it comes from. It's like it comes from Atlantic Records, I'll listen to it. If it comes from Jimmy from Thornton, I'll listen to it. It's like, I'm in. And I say that, and then I would say I should caveat it. I may not listen to the whole song, because I can kind of make a call on it earlier than the whole song. But and we've got a song that's on our kind of on deck board that we're ready to play as soon as we find a spot for it. I'm not going to say who, because I'm going to start any hubbub or scuttlebutt or whatever. We do that all year round, and then we do Hometown for the Holidays, where we drop most of our new music out of rotation for a week in December and just hammer the local music and really give it a lot of spins, 5 to 8 spins a day, which for these artists. So it's a lot of great exposure, and we really hammer it. And we honestly, that's really what we want to do. People over time have told us they wanted a winner, and so now we have a winner. But it's voted by the music nerds, and they get recording time at the blasting room, and they get to play Not So Silent Night and stuff like that. So we do that. A lot of interaction with local bands, and we have Locals Only, which is a long time running show. In 1999, I hosted it. I was the single worst host of Locals Only that there has ever been. What's that? Hey, it's Nerf, Locals Only. Here's Joe LaBiafra and his band Dead Kennedys, because he grew up in Boulder, and I just moved back here, and I'm out of touch. So we do a lot with local music that a lot of radio stations around the country that are commercial radio stations don't necessarily do. But
How would these artists in this room, I think most people have probably submitted, but if you haven't, how would you submit to get airplay on any of these stations?
Yeah, I always say time and time again, if you've ever come to one of our local 303 meetups or anything, submit on our website, indie1023.org. Over the years, just by getting by getting music submissions from you all, sort of figured out, here's all the information I need to know about you, and because I want to make your music shine if we do choose to share you on air. So you fill out a little form on our website, it comes straight to me, and then I track that music, and then I explain on our website, like the couple different ways that you can be featured on there as well. So that's how you can do it with Indie 1023, and it's pretty darn easy.
For the drop, just email thedrop@kuvo.org. It has to be clean. And I would say too, one suggestion is just make sure it's mastered well. I think we meet every other week, and all the hosts kind of go through all of our submissions or all of our own submissions and decide on them as a group. And that's the main reason why a local artist doesn't get chosen, is because of the mastering. So pay special attention to that. And I would say too, develop relationships with us. One thing I've noticed is that people will like follow you on social media, and that's it. Like, I don't know that you're an artist, you know? I don't know what kind of music you play, and I don't necessarily have time to do the digging. So don't be afraid to say, hey, what's up? My name is this, I make this kind of music. Here's a sample of it. I am always looking for music for my shows. So it's helpful for me to know who you are and what you do. So don't be afraid at all.
Yeah, same with KUVO. We have a submission form online. We're also doing a lot of events, local events, and just meeting with people. And to Molly's point, and a lot of everyone else's points, music directors or program directors, we are inundated with just a huge volume of submissions. Music comes from us from all directions, whether it's a zip file or a link or a download code or a newsletter. Like it's constant. So the main point, if you are presenting music, you want to make sure you are sounding, it's mastered, it's professional, it's radio ready, it's clean, there's no FCC issues. So having, the saying is very true. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So making sure you've got all of your ducks in a line and they're all ready to go, and you present that, and getting involved with your local station, it goes a long way. Showing up to the events, introduce, volunteer. It's a great way to make yourself seen in a massive influx of submissions. It just kind of gets you out above the rest. So get involved with, volunteer, work a table, shake hands, kiss babies, do whatever. Get to know the staff at the radio station. It's really the best way. And they're always looking for local music showcases, and it's a great way to get your name above the rest.
And I just want to add one other thing. Do the work. If you're going to submit your music, don't just message somebody that works in the music industry on Instagram and be like, hey, how can I submit my music? Like, do a little work. Like, a lot of us just keep our info, link in bio sort of situations. So kind of look on there and check and do a little bit of homework instead of just like DMing somebody. Like for me, if you direct message me on Instagram, I'll look at it, I'll acknowledge it, but I don't want to have to say like, hey, check out my link in bio. Like, you could have just taken the extra 5 seconds to do that, and then you'd find like, okay, I can go to a submission page. And so just, be aware of that, because you're coming at music and that you want to be a professional in it, that that this is your livelihood. So just, do a little work so that you don't have to make the person who wants to share your music do all that extra work, like, put in some time.
Yeah, that's such a good note. I feel like I'm constantly with several of the bands I work with just trying to help them pitch themselves to radio stations and connect with them. Just make sure your spelling, your grammar is as good as it can be. Make sure you're concise, to the point, you're telling your story, you're putting links in that work. All of that stuff, you can miss opportunities just from having a link that's broken, and then there you go. And if you're not sure which radio stations to pitch to outside of your local station, I would just try and find an artist or a label that kind of represents what your music is, or something similar to that vibe, and then see where they're playing and what they're doing. This is all stuff that you can Google, and a lot of the developmental formats for new artists are going to be college radio stations and the non-commercial, like NPR affiliate stations. So there's 400 college radio stations? Yeah, there's a lot. So there's a lot of fans to be made out there, for sure.
Definitely. Colorado is like the most saturated
Oh,
state
yeah.
with non-commercial radio. So you have many options right here in Colorado. But Nerf, how do folks submit to you?
Well, for regular programming, just email it to me, nerf@ktcl.com, and I'll listen to it. And like, what we do get a lot of submissions, and like, and you know, it's rare that I find one that I could really get away with playing between Fall Out Boy and, you know, Nirvana or whatever. So like, you know, make sure it is in that lane too. Like, if you're gonna send it my way. But yeah, if you think it would sound good on our station, then send it my way and I'll check it out. And then I'll probably hit you up for an ISRC code afterwards. But if we want to play it. But then Saxton and Dirt are locals only hosts. They take submissions too, and I can't remember offhand their submission process. But look them up on social media, and I'm sure they will have like some kind of a submission process for them too.
I worked at Sound Exchange for many years as the Artist and Label Relations, as a performance rights organization based out of DC. It was set up by the U.S. Copyright Office, like as when music started going streaming. So if you are submitting or becoming a professional musician, you want to make sure that you're signed up for ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC on your songwriting and publishing side. But on the Sound Exchange side, you want to make sure your metadata, your ISRC codes are there. Using weird characters as your band name, or that actually prohibits, because if the computer systems are looking for apples to apples, and if the computers, your track is getting played, but your name is spelled with like symbols and all of that other stuff, it's going to be very hard for those royalties that you are earning through streaming radio and internet radio and all of those places where your music can be heard. So making sure your metadata is correct, and there's basically a watermark on your digital release to ensure that you as a songwriter or a publisher, you're getting properly paid for your royalties. So having your metadata organized and proper is highly important, and also making sure that you're registering your works with performance rights organizations so they can collect and monitor any of your royalties that you may be earning. So that's important to notice too.
You get paid. Harlan, do you have anything to add on submissions?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's like, I think it's really important to know that handoff. They're talking about like all the rules for things which are important. As like, I'm someone who spent a lot of time like pitching music, to check all those boxes with these folks professionally, as like making sure that stuff is there, available to them, and they know the story of it concisely, because they're getting inundated with that. And I think the more you build that relationship with your local arts organizations, the more that email hits with people, because they're recognizing this thing with that thing. And so, yeah, I just think it's really important to go wide, to not be afraid of like, I'm just gonna go for this. Like, I'm just gonna email this radio station, even though I've never talked to them. But like, read something on the radio station's website first to see if you feel like it fits. It's like knowing that audience helps your pitch there.
Molly and Alisha, just real quick, this is potential can of worms. Alisha, you both mentioned sometimes it doesn't make the cut, and it's the production, it's the mastering. What is it where it's like, it's almost there? Like, what would be able to kick it over a fence for you, where it'd be like, yeah, we're definitely gonna add this, versus like, it's almost there, but not quite. Maybe just like one or two things, because it could be a whole myriad of things, really.
Yeah, I think some of it echoes what Harlan said, is that, we have a very specific niche, urban alternative. And so if you're going to send us some like ratchet, music, we're probably not going to pick it. Just not because it's not good, but because it doesn't fit, right? And there are stations where it does, and so that's where you should be submitting. But I think too is just, it really comes down for us to the mastering. Like I said, I cannot stress that enough. A lot of us like to use our friends and our families, and that's so beautiful. But just make sure they're the best. Seriously.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll get submissions from artists, and I'll listen to it, and I'll write back, because I'm like, this is good, but it doesn't necessarily fit on Indie 102.3. It's an amazing jazz track, so I'll sometimes write back and be like, hey, hit up KUVO. Or, when I get like a really, like, we play hip hop, and I incorporate that into our local 303 all the time, because it does represent our community. But yeah, like you said, like if something's really ratchet or whatever, but I really like that artist, I'll create an extra half hour, 45 minutes of work for myself, being like, okay, I'm gonna check them out on Spotify. I'm gonna read their story on Instagram, because I'm like, there is something to it, and I do wanna celebrate you on air. I do wanna share, but then I'll listen and I'll be like, dang it, like, man, these song lyrics don't quite fit in to what we're able to play on air. So yeah, and sometimes it is that quality. Like, I'll oftentimes write back and be like, hey, can you just, like, is this a demo, question mark? Or a lot of times artists will be like, I just want to share my demo with you. I'm getting it mastered in a couple weeks. And then sometimes song length as well. Yeah. So like a 3-minute song, that's really nice. Sometimes when I want to feature you in the local 303, but your songs are 5.5 minutes long, sometimes that does take a listener out of their listening space, and they might change the station, even if it's an incredible song. So sometimes I will curate around, because I ask you, like, when you're submitting on our website, choose 1 to 3 songs from your catalog that you think would sound great on the radio. And sometimes that timing does have something to do with it as well.
Michelle, Shane, and Nerf, to go along with this conversation, what does one do and one don't artists can do when they are submitting?
Oh man, go ahead, Nerf.
Sure. I've got a few.
There's so many.
As far as commercial radio, she just mentioned 1 to 3 songs for non-com. It's one song. I know that, like, I get a whole album sometimes, and man, I've got bands that I love that it takes me forever to listen to their whole album. I don't have much audio real estate. I got to listen to one song and make a call on it. So it's like, and I've heard bands say that's like choosing one of my children, and I'm like, well, do you want me to choose one of your children? Just send me a single, the one you think has the best shot. That's one big don't send the album. And then one do is don't make sure that it's ready. Like I've had people because we do have an open door policy. We play a lot of local music, and people hear it and say like, oh well, he's willing to listen to whatever, and I kind of am. But like at the same time, the people that spent a lot of money on the recording, that worked really hard and long on the recording and got there, it kind of does them a disservice if you record it on your boombox and send it my way. Listen, okay, listen to what is on there and what has made the cut, and send me put your best foot forward on that. That's important. Those are my first do and don't that comes to mind.
Yeah, I feel like we've gone over a bunch of this already, actually. But yeah, catering to your audience, know who you are pitching. Like Harlan said, look up their website, listen to the station, see if the music that you are making makes sense in the rest of their playlist. I feel like we've covered this, really. Get to know the people at the station. I've definitely seen some of the don'ts. I've definitely seen some people get upset if they don't get added, and I know that it can be really heartbreaking to not get added to a station, and I hope that you can just take the feedback as constructive and just keep trying, because if you just sort of quit on yourself and, lash out at the station, that's not going to help you at all, and that's just bad. So be kind to your community members.
There are some tough decisions that we have to make, and it's I'm a big fan of not. I won't be a dick about it. It's if I have to turn something down, most of the time people don't ask why or necessarily want notes. So I'm like, we couldn't do this. I'm sorry, I can't get this on. But if they do say why, I'm really happy to talk about the positives and negatives and do the most I can do to be constructive about the whole thing. Because the point is not to break your dream. The point is to say hey, let's get you to the next level, and so that I can play it, because I do want to crazy.
Yeah, I agree with all of that stuff. I think it's important to remember that especially in the community and the public radio space, we are overworked and under-resourced. We are wearing a lot of hats. There are lots of things that it's event planning, it's training staff, it's serving your community, it's underwriting meetings, it's marketing meetings, it's all, we're stretched pretty thin. So feedback is a gift. If we can offer the feedback, take that feedback and run with it. But I agree, getting angry at someone because it's not personal, so allowing that feedback and understanding that. But like I said, you don't really get a second chance to make a first impression. And it's really how you are presenting yourself as an artist and as a community member and as a stakeholder in what it is that you want to be a part of.
Awesome. Molly and Alisha, we know the importance of representation on air from our BIPOC, femme, queer, and disabled artists. How can radio authentically represent and uplift systemically excluded artists and voices?
I think ultimately it just comes down to relationship building, and it's a two-way street. As we were saying, come to the station, come volunteer, do all these things, absolutely. But for us too, it's just being out in the community and finding out who those artists are and who people are listening to. But it's important because that's like how, I feel like that's how we know who we are, how we're able to place ourselves as, like I said, I got into radio because I was like, who in the heck am I? And I found that through music, right? I was like, I felt seen and understood through the voices that I was listening to. And I wanted to give that to other people, so I started a radio show. And knowing that people turn on the radio and they're like, I feel so validated, listening to people that sound like me, that look like me, that have my experience, is just like, that's what I'm in it for. Yeah.
Yeah, same at Indie 102.3. I really am mindful about the artists that we play, especially the Colorado musicians that I curate every month. Like this month, it's, a Latina queer artist. We have, a musician who's all about preaching mental health and kindness in his artistry. We have a variety of musicians, and I'm just really, I think, I really go into what I do to authentically curate from the heart, and so that's how I'm able to bring that message onto the airwaves.
All right, we're almost out of time. I want to hear, maybe afterwards you guys can ask like what a really great success story is for one of our local acts, because there are many, which is beautiful. But in the spirit of UMS, everybody, we're gonna just maybe start with Harlan and then come back up the line. An act that you're really excited to see at UMS this weekend.
Oh, can I cheat and say Reina?
You
Okay.
may. I would
Okay.
love for
I'm
that
sorry.
to happen, because I'm excited to
sorry.
see you, Reina.
I'm sorry, yeah, but I was like, I really love Reina Tropical. It's been amazing to work with Fabi throughout this year, and there's just like a special piece of my heart that's like, you're coming to where I live, and you're gonna play this show at UMS. So Reina Tropical is playing Sunday. She's also just an amazing artist too, because she started She Shreds magazine when she was 18, and so has been doing like all the stuff that we're talking about, where it's like creating space and advocacy, and also doing that through like providing professional resources for people, their music to be shown, to a larger audience, which everyone up here does. And now she is the artist that I'm so like grateful that I get to be a person who like works to yell and for the advocacy for her. So I just cheat and say the artist that I work with, Reina Tropical, also.
But her music is also supremely fantastic. It's just so good.
I'm looking forward to seeing Spells High Dive tonight. And Ben Roy, amazing comedian, love the Grawlix guys, and the band is rad too, so this is going to be a lot of fun. And Emil and the Sniffers.
Okay.
You can cheat too.
I have to cheat, and it's hard to pick just one, but I do work at Sub Pop, and there are multiple Sub Pop and Hardly Art, that's our sister label bands that are playing here, Deeper and Ill Peach, but I also manage a band on the side, and they're in here. They're a Seattle-based band called Beautiful Freaks. I'm very excited to see them play tomorrow night at HQ at 9. They're, all the beauties back there. Yeah, not to blow up your spot, they're a bunch of trans, queer, ADHD, autistic, talented motherfuckers, sorry. And they just put out an album, and post-hardcore experimental glam pop, is that what we're going with now? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where I'd found the time to manage a band on the side, but I love them, and I'm very proud of them, so y'all should go see them too.
Is radio playing them?
Yes, they are actually top 30 at KEXP this week. Yeah, I'm very stoked.
I'm looking forward to seeing the Hallucination, a really cool indigenous like hip hop electronic group. They used to be called A Tribe Called Red, and they switched. Yeah, they're amazing. We played them a lot at my last station, WYC in Grand Rapids. So just really a phenomenal indigenous group. And Takei Maesta is also a really interesting act that I'm looking forward to seeing. And of course, Reina Tropical on Sunday. So those are the three. Those are my three, like, yes. Right
Be
now.
there.
Yeah, Harlan stole my answer.
Same.
But there are a lot of incredible local Latinos playing Quiltro, 2MX, to Don Chicharron, Rimo Cascabel. I mean, I'm so proud of the festival this year for that.
Tonight is really good at HQ. We did that on purpose. We're trying to do, I'm also one of the talent buyers for UMS, by the way. We're trying to do instill a cumbia night at UMS. So once we get a bunch of cumbia acts that can all play on the same night, it will be a true cumbia night, but see you tonight.
Oh, geez, who to see? All of those acts, and I want to throw in a name called the Cherokee Social. This is an incredible duo, and I caught them live at FOCO MX in Fort Collins this year, and I felt like I really understood them and loved their sense of humor and how they drew in the audience and were just go with the flow because, you're at a festival, things get chaotic, people in the audience are wild, and they just rolled with the punches in the most fun way, and it was very just tribal and uplifting, and I absolutely love this indigenous duo. They're so cool.
Awesome. Well, you can also catch the full schedule, of course, on the UMS app. But please do check out our radio stations. I want to thank each of you for being here today. Thanks for coming out on the middle of a Friday to talk about radio with some very beautiful people here. We are just about out of time, but if these folks are amenable to it, I'm sure they can answer any questions you have about radio and getting your music out there. But thank you all. I really appreciate
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Can I ask a question to Harlan and Michelle? Yeah. Okay, so for musicians that are in here, you guys work for labels that are, like Sub Pop. I have a keychain of Sub Pop that I've had for like 18 years on my car keys, for real. Can a Colorado musician get on a Sub Pop kind of label? Can a Colorado musician that people hear that, 10,000 Spotify streams a month, they have, some cool things going for them, a decent following online, how does that person get on Sub Pop? Or Psychic Hotline? Like, how does someone approach a label that might be a musician that's here that's like, okay, maybe radio has played us, but maybe I think my music's real good and I want to see if I can get on a label. Should they invest the time in doing that? Or will Sub Pop find them? Will Psychic Hotline find them?
I mean, it's always ideal if we could find them, but coming to the label, I think, is always great. I also, on top of doing radio promotions, do A&R for Sub Pop. And we're really just looking for artists. I mean, we're a smaller, mid-sized indie label. There are some bigger ones like Beggars Group, Secretly Canadian, that have like way bigger rosters. So we do have to be really picky, but we are just looking for really talented artists that are kind of pushing the envelope when it comes to like what's popular right now. So things that are maybe a little bit outside of the box, a little bit weird, and just try to help good people get to a level that we think we can actually help them get to. So if you ever want to pitch to labels, like I said with radio pitching, look for artists that are similar in your vein or you think kind of give off the same vibe and what label they're on. And then as far as contact, I can give you my contact information, but there are also a lot of other great labels out there too where it's interesting. I feel like we're not as accessible maybe as we should be, and maybe that's on purpose. But I know on Spotify, if you go to an album, you can go down to the bottom of it and see what label it's licensed from.
Yeah.
That might be a good way to start, and then look up that label online, see who works there, find them on LinkedIn. I don't know. Some people are accessible, some aren't, but I'm around if you want my info.
Yeah.
Got 2 minutes.
Yeah, I just think that labels should be one of the last things that you do because it
That's
is
good feedback.
so much of it is about physical production of an item to sell or distribution, which you can find distribution yourself without a label, and because a label's job is to understand, explain, and execute the release of a record, and you can do that without a label. But if you have an ecosystem that wants to expand you releasing that release, then you should already have this ecosystem rolling of this team that you have when you bring a label in, I think. So
yeah. That's a really good point. I'm always telling new artists, if you're trying to build a team, try and find someone who can, if you're at the level where you feel like you need to do this, a booking agent and a lawyer. I feel like those are the two most important things that you can start with. if you have like a friend manager that'll do it for free and not take a cut, I say do it. If they're really passionate about it, go for it. But that's going to be the thing that you want to build first. I feel like labels kind of get a bad rap sometimes too. Like they're just trying to take the money from artists and like run with it. So you do want to be at a certain level before you do that. But labels like Sub Pop, Psychic Hotline, I feel like we're truly just trying to help artists get to that next level that they want to be on. But Harlan's right. You kind of have to have that foundation built first to actually be taken seriously and, yeah, make the labels feel like they can help you too.
If you're looking for a lawyer, Dave Ratner of Creative Law Firm up in Boulder is really great. But we are out of time, and there is another panel coming in next. So really, truly, thank you each. Thanks all of you for joining us.